Good morning. I hope I am audible. So, good morning to all of you. So, we will be starting our session. So, we already got session from Mustaq sir. So, I will be giving brief description of who he is. So, Dr. Mustaq Ahmed sir is currently working as head of department in Department of Computer Science at MNIT Jaipur. With more than 25 years of teaching, he is a member of Board of Studies of Gujarat Technical University, Board of Studies of member of MIT University, Research Board of UEM Jaipur. He is also fellow IE, life member of ACN, life member of IST, life member of ACCS, member IEEE, and member IEEE. So I'll be handing over to Mustaq sir for further proceedings.
Good morning, Jitendra.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. Yes, sir.
Just hold on, I'm trying to share my screen
So,
using this browser. Is it visible?
no, sir, your screen is not visible. So you have to share your application or share your screen with application, whatever.
Okay, okay, just hold on. Just hold on.
And you have to share entire window of that presentation.
I'm trying to do that.
Yeah.
Just hold on. Okay. Is it visible now?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Hmm?
No, sir. So first you have to click on share and then share one application and then window.
I'm trying to share this entire screen on the browser. I'm using the browser. I'm using this. Acha, that might be the reason it is not visible. Just hold on. Is it visible now?
No, sir.
What is going on? We are running out of time. I hope
Yes, sir. It is visible now.
now it is visible. Again,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is visible now.
okay, so quickly I start this.
Sir, your voice is echoing. I think two speakers are on.
It is echoing.
Yes, sir. Two speakers might be on. That's why.
Okay, so good morning, all of you. Now, today, this important talk pertaining to this AI and machine learning, which has been used in the healthcare, that I should discuss.
Excuse me, sir. There is a echo in your sound, sir.
So, how can I resolve that?
I think two mics are on your side.
You can like mute the device or from which you are not sharing. Like there are two devices, na, for your name. So you can remove one or mute one.
Okay, am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Uh, okay, that's please if I am not able to hear. Now, normally happens that a artificial intelligence faces not given that vast for in his type of which should just still as it should give the uh, related opportunity should have the the personal area in his area of expertise. So in this case, use of lifeless control, you know, such is being such is being. Hello.
Yes, sir.
मैं मेरी आवाज मुझसे आ am I still audible? Hello.
Uh, Excuse me, sir. Sorry for disturb. Actually, sir, I think so. You have login with the two browsers. One is your Cisco WebEx app itself. Second is from browser. So you have to just switch off means turn off your one browser, either browser or Cisco WebEx app. Yes, sir. Now try to share with your one app, either that is Cisco WebEx or web browser.
Okay.
Now now it's going fine, sir.
This
Yes.
is well and all. Okay, correct. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, quickly pertaining to this, the importance is that we require to learn about or know about this artificial intelligence and use of machine learning in the healthcare system. So, as you can see that these are the two different types of domains where we can easily state that this machine learning, which is a part of this AI, but cannot be stated as AI because it is an assistant part of having those knowledge derived by using the machine learning. Machine will give us or the person and assistance to determine that what type of that decision it has to take. So there is a clear distinction between this machine learning and the AI. And here in this case, variations of this machine learning techniques are there, which provides the output based on that the decision has to be taken. So we can see that in the overall, in order to get the better quality of the output, we require to have the better machine learning techniques, which implies that the large size of the data corpus and the training and the testing data, if that has been large, in that case, it would be better to get the proper result or better suggestive output to use AI technique. Now here in this case, the okay, here is in this case what implies that the machine learning because some part of that I already have been discussed. In a normal AI, we ask that the computer system to give us the assistance that what sort of the decision I should take. So keeping in mind with this, for this healthcare system implies that the output decision that is being suggested by the healthcare system will be um, maximally accepted with a minimal error. Otherwise, that would cause the problem or healthcare problem to the person, and that may be catastrophic for the person who is being treated using the help of the AI and the machine learning. So, as we know that we have the two main categorizations of the machine learning, where the supervised learning requires that index data or the data should be tagged or that it should be qualified, classified and available for making the decision. Unlike that is being supervised type of unsupervised type of the model, which I had discussed yesterday, where the fuzzy inferences rule-based type of the techniques, which is specifically determined based on those rules, what type of the decision is to be taken. Now, pertaining to this unsupervised type of the learning, we have another type of the category like trajectory of the path of the robotics in the given warehouse where the marking has already been defined and using which that device has to move from one side to the another side. So in that case, that is also referred to as a unsupervised type of the learning where that system is able to understand the path and determine that its movement based on that. So in this, mainly the importance of using this uh, machine learning or the better categorization of the data set and using which the decision has to be taken, we requires a big corpus, large corpus, and that should be latest one. Most of the cases when we talk about pertaining to that research publication, it requires that the data corpus is quite old or it is already been available. Many people are already working on that. So only the variations of that how much you are using for the testing and training data to mitigate the empirical research risk or uh, the error which are occurred during the testing, during the training phase and during the testing phase. So the another term of that is a the mechanism of reducing the empirical and structural risk. Now, here in this case, when we talk about this supervisory, we talk about supervisory data which is already labeled. So in that case, the main focus on that how much that is space that we are using. If something like this is mentioned over here, the two different type of the center which is be identified and that need to be classified. Marking of that is already been done, but how to separate them and specify them, that becomes a critical one. So such type of the scenario, we have to make a elliptical or that curvature type of that scenario where this distinction of these two different type of the category can be separated. So in that case, the two different size of that separate space pen that is required to be made in order to make that a classification. Now here in this case that there are the many type of this classification technique like the support vector machine where the only two data which are required to be separated, but that which are most common of that is a linear separable data where the clear line that need to be drawn in order to make the distinguish between the two different set of the data. Whereas the multiple, if the data size variations of that size is there or that multiple classifications of the data is there, in that case we require to use the naive-Bayes type of the techniques. Now in this case, in the machine learning, the data which is been taken and the type of the model which we require to use, like in the support vector machine, the various type of that uh, the kernel are being used in order to determine that which one would be the best in order to depict that clear distinction or the classification of the data. Based on that, the output is to be predicted that whether that is related to the expected value or not. If the error is there, it requires to go and further train that. So sometimes it requires that the data which is being used that may be having some sort of the error. So because when a randomized approach of taking the data and evaluating the data based on that trained system in a heuristic nature, so the output would be varying and we require to mitigate that deviations if it has been there and pertaining to that the error if it has been there, in that case we require to put some sort of the measure or to mitigate that is also referred to as uh, a penalty score that is to be added with that output. Okay, and then given back again to the model so that it can predict correctly. So in this, so some sort of that precision the machine need to be identified. This is a error of that decision that was a distance. In that, if that penalty score has been added, in that case, it would not be able to penalty score once that has been given that and the machine has to determine the output based on that corrective measures which has been added. So that is also referred to as a part of this supervised type of the learning where that decision has to be taken. So various type of this classification of the machine learnings are there. We can state that the supervised and supervisory reinforcement type of the learnings where that the back propagations or that information pertaining to that illness that is required to be added again. And the main focus nowadays is that having a large set of the data and multiple hidden layers or the mask of pertaining to that features which are required to be extracted in order to determine the output, we have to use the deep learning mechanism. Now, deep learning implies that it is the supervised learning. Deep learning implies that the data corpus is large. Deep learning implies that the resources which requires to computer should be large enough in order to make the determination of that output which is to be accepted. And even though it could be having the multiple number of the output, so in that case, the decision has to be taken that which one would be the best one. In that case, the further classification pertaining to that has to be taken using the random forest type of the techniques. So among them, the multiple output which is been there, the highest priority and the decision which has been taken or based on that, how many number of that decision trees are giving the output and where would be that most acceptability would be. In that case, that output would be taken as a part of acceptance and that is what is being required. So in this case, multiple variations of this deep learning are there. RNN, CNN, DNN, and SNN are there. So, the SNN is the new one, which is in spiking neural network. So, only those categorized parts which are relevant in order to make the decisions that need to be accounted, and the remaining is not, means that it has to be extracted as a generalized feature part, but the exceptional part which is to be taken only if that has been there. So in that case, the taking of the decision of the system would become the very fast, but that may not be the correct one. So the challenges are there so to mitigate those type of the awareness about the output and whether that is to be taken correctly or not by the system. So having said this, I would emphasize that the system which is trained using the large data corpus. So in that case, there may be the different type of the patterns which are required to be get explored. Based on that, the decision has to be taken. So in a deep learning, we have the multiple number of the hidden layers and the data input size. And as I said that there could be the multiple number of the output. There that decision has to be taken. We require to apply the deep learning random forest type of the techniques or some other probabilistic based type of the decision making, that how many number of that output which are near to that expected output and only that is required to be taken into account. So variations of this type of the deep learning techniques are there, which we say that are the large language model in order to make this decision making criteria. So in this, the data corpus is need to be very high. So the expected output, I know that I require this sort of this sort of the decision that is to be taken by the machine without my assistance, and that would be only for my assistance. And I am providing all sort of the data and the classification techniques. The rest of the part the machine has to do. If the new input is to be provided and it has to classify that in which category that belongs to. If the data is of the two type only, in that case the classification becomes easier one and that can be linearly separated. If and there could be the some sort of that deviations in that case the non-linear patterns may be required in order to separate the data. So the variations of this linearly separable data or the non-linear separable data are there, where the and all these different type of the machine learning techniques that they support such type of the classification of the data. So two things are there that once that data which has been classified and that has been identified and the new features based on those features of extractions, based on those features, classification has been made. If the new input is provided, it has to make a clear distinction that the based on those type of the features which are being used in order to make the classification, the same features are being used in order to classify new data and predict that which category it belongs to, and it will classify or specify that this is what that based on those features that this is this the data input is related to this category. Mainly the work which we have gone through in the early stage detection of the carcinoma, where that the carcinal basic cell, whether that is a malignant or the benign. So in that case, the clear distinction of the category categorization of that need to be made. If the wrong prediction of that is been given, in that case, that would be very much hazardous to the patient if it is being applied. So what is needed that in the generative AI, when we talk about having all this type of that classification and the decision making criteria pertaining to that output which is being taken, in this case, the data which is being provided, it should be looking good or should be acceptable more. In that case, what I require that once it has to be made a clear distinction that the data which is being provided, that is the correct one, but it has to be accepted more. In that case, more we can say that the more innovation or annotation and some beautification of that is to be needed so that that will be acceptable more. For having those clearly classification of the data based on the features, we would require to get the output, but we require to get output with a more acceptable way, which are very much pleasant to the end user. Likewise, you may have gone through that the emoji that are being created or some sort of that AI generated type of the animated output of the person. Once you give those type of the input, it gives the output which only specify or take the main features of your image and generate the new image which are acceptable and that gives you the happiness. So that the things are already existing in the market. So in this, the clear distinction is required to be made that the data which has been provided and the input which has been put that belongs to that particular category or not. So in that case, the the classification need to be made in the clear way while training the system, and that would give this a clear distinction that this is a better acceptable one based on that the classification which has already been done. So in this case, we can say that the acceptable part of that data which is already been considered, having that we require to know that whether this input which is being provided, whether this input which is being provided, having that classified data available, and among that the occurrence of that the new data, whether that belongs to that particular category or not. So having those type of that information available, we can clearly distinguish that this particular data belongs to this category and that has to be accepted one. So as you can see that there is a clear distinction that once that categorization based on the features available, we have a new input like the cat and distinction within the cat and dog based on their features. The probability of that advance to be taken into the account and the decision boundary can be created easily to make this a distinction between the two different type of the models. So in the generative AI, that would give us that clear distinction among the two different type of the categories, but we need not require to change that or that maybe we can change or we may take that more acceptable. So if a particular type of the scenario where that distinction is required to be made, try to understand what I'm stating now, that in this case, if the query for pertaining to that is required and given to the say now, system has to give the output to me and the set of the query at the similar instant of the time asked, it has to be number of the people, it would not give the same sort of the output. There was the operation, there would be the distinction, and it would understand the distinction should be more acceptable. So some sort of the tested of that if I do require to give a input of a nurse or a doctor person, or if I ask that give the image of a nurse or which is going to treat a patient. So in that case, it would give us different type of the output or different type of there could be the male nurse or there could be the female nurse, and it may be from the region or boundary or that area from where you have generated the query. So in that case, the system is trained enough in order to provide that more acceptability based on that area and the region. And it would not, if suppose I require to ask the image of the cat, so in that case, instead of showing me the Persian cat, it would give me the image of the Indian cat. So the variations of that would be there. This may be because of that the data corpus which is expected to be used by the system for the more acceptable way, that should be belong to that particular region, so that the acceptability of that would be more. So that is what that emphasis on this is there. So in this general the category which we are focusing in that generative AI, that the clear distinction of that the acceptance of that criteria, that should be more the probability pertaining to that adaptability, acceptability by the end user, that need to be emphasized, which is mentioned over here. So in that case, this red dotted line is there, which is to be considered. Unlike the clear distinction in the discriminative way, is that is the binary one, which is yes or no, whether that belongs to one or that or not. So distinction of that is a very important place in order to get. So having a number of the classification with me, and based on that, which is to be taken, which is whether that belongs to that category, I was to emphasize on those type of features and generate the new output which is more acceptable, and that is what this NIRE-based model performs. So as you can see over here, that the animal which is having a distinct type of the creation, panther, jaguar, cheetah, and uh, another is lion. There are the distinct type of that classifications among them based on their skin lines or the patches which are there. So color, size, text, weight, multiple number of those type of the features are there. So to whom which we should emphasize, look over here between -50 to the 0, that these features belongs to this category, which we are enhancing with that generative AI to make that more acceptable, that this particular category belongs to this one, and pertaining to that the animated type of the output or that enhanced type of the output that may be given, so that that can be accepted. Other categorizations that makes this a distinction between these two will give us this clear classification that the features which belongs to the lion is not similar to the big or the features pertaining to that the big cat, it does not belong to the domestic cat, and we can make that a clear distinction among these two. So having those type of that features available and the clear distinctions and the identifications, what type of the query that has been made and whether this category belongs to that requested query, based on those features, the system would generate the output and then that will be more acceptable. Now, looking into this type of the scenario, the patient which is having a multiple image for the X-ray or any type of that diagnosis that is to be undergone. In that case, the doctor looks into those type of features and extract those information and clearly make a distinction that whether that belongs to a generalized category of that disease where that treatment has to be given. So a clear distinction that can be made in order to determine whether that belongs to that particular disease or not. So in this case, the regression technique used. So there are techniques of the linear regression techniques, logistic, which is logistic regression technique. You provide a clear distinction that whether that particular category belongs to one category or the data which is provided that belongs to the one category or to the another one. So distinction of that can be there. Logistic regression or the linear regression is there. In that case, another is a log regression. If the data is too high to be predicted based on that, that cannot be summarized within that specified area. In that case, we perform the or the logarithmic regression where there's a vertical graph for the part of that is used for the is a logarithmic formula and the horizontal will be the same. So in the because it is very important that everything the decision which is be taken based on that the class parameters so that has to be categorized and that should be summarized and depicted in the graphical model or the output. So if that cannot be summarized or that cannot be depicted clearly, in that case we require to use the logarithmic regression. Some other type of that the lasso and ridge method is there. Ridge regression or the lasso regression techniques are also there, which are also being used in order to make this clear distinction. So you can see over here that the distinction based on those type of the features can be easily used in order to classify and categorize the data. So pertaining to this, the accuracy which is required to be kept high and the feature and the features that are not being there, in that case, we based on that, the distinction between the proper classification is not been there. In that case, we can say that the machine is failed to give us that better classification. Specifically in this health case, listen to me, this is a very important part. If the data corpus is small, you are applying the deep learning techniques or all those RNN, CNN, and DNN type of the techniques. In that case, the machine would give this biased decisions, and that might not be the correct one. And this biasing problem or that giving that decision in favor of decision because the machine is not enough and would not be able to evaluate properly the features. In that case, the output would be wrong, and which we may claim that that is a bias type of the decision. So in this case, the machine learning technique in the generative AI plays a very important role and provide us that predicted type of output, which are more specified and that can be further categorized and is put as a part of the labeled input data or the mark one which can be used for the next level. So in this case, all sort of that input which are been there, in that case the additional features that are added for making the more acceptability. Something like this is not being acceptable when the decision has to be taken for a clear distinction of the uh, disease, which is a very important or critical one. So we do require to know and to think about where can we apply the generative AI and where we cannot do that. So, like I said, that this pertaining to this image enhancement, that would be a important one, and based on that, the distinction can be made. So, the specific feature based on that, the emphasis of that image part, based on that, the decision has to be taken. In the medical image techniques, only those images, fractional part of that would be emphasized, put as a large or coloring a segment or segmentation of that can be made to make the distinction and classification. Whereas the other type of that put like the number or the class or the probability functions or the AI. But the audio video we have seen that these are the synthesis type of the output where the uh, speech synthesis done by the machine is being used in order to make the uh, vocal output which has been accepted with some additional and some animations and some type of the output are nowadays commonly used with the help of the AI. So as we can see that we require to train the system based on that available input. The model output should be acceptable and that is to be categorized whether that can be enhanced or not. So in a generalized way, we can say that the training data, based on that model training, which we asked to have the labor data, and it would give us the number clear distinction as a part of this classification and its categorization in the form of the multiple number of squares, and would give that whether in which type of the category that belongs and where that has to be taken. So it is not necessary that we may be having a same type of the data. The multiple number of the variations type of the data can be there, and the system should be able to do that type of the categorization. If the new image or the new input is been given, which is not among that generalized classification, which is already been done, what would happen in that case? So in that case, the line-based approach is to be applied here. It has to make it the new classification based on those type of the features and put those type of that labeling in that and add that in that new uh, classified type of the data category. And based on that, the decision has to be taken. So likewise, I said that we have the four distinct type of the data type of the category: text, image, audio, and video. So pertaining to this, all these different type of the conversion of that and acceptability among them, a lot of such type of the research is currently going on in a supervised or unsupervised type of the technique. As I said that the system requires some information based on that generative AI or using this large language model. The distinction between these two is to be made. So sometimes the system may get failed, but if the system is well trained and would give us that clear classification, which is now being feasible based on that the large data corpus of the large machine, which will be able to compute that in a fast way, and that is what the current system of the which is required, providing us with this information. So Lambda, Palm, and GPT are the generative language model currently used. So mainly that speech, conversation, synthesis of the data, and seeking that information pertaining to that output in a multilingual way. You can perform that using such type of the existing model available. So likewise, I had asked one of my friend some day ago that I need my language in which I am speaking in Hindi, convert that into the Spanish language or convert that into the some other Kannada language. So whether that would be able to or the system would be able to do that. And it was surprising to me that it convert that in those. So he asked clearly that speak in this language, uh, and he spoke that sentence, and that sentence was communicated in the specified language which was asked. So something such that the model is now uh, available and that can be directly used by the end user, and that the reason of providing that free to be used is that your voice, your input data is being used for the further uh, uh, input part of the system to learn that in a better and efficient way. So once that has been done there, in that case, your voice would be recognized, your pattern would be recognized, uh, your pitch and frequency that would be recognized, and based on that, any verbal communication which you require to make that the system would learn that and give the output. Just hold on. So when we talk about this generative AI, the large language models are being there. So in that case, the transformation of that can be there. That would again give that all sort of that erroneous which is not been acceptable, like it is not been able to be depicted. So all those dot to dot which occurs in the image that will be cleaned, and you would see your image in a more emphasized way with that main key features which will be only uh, depicted with the sharp classification and the distinction or the sharp image which would be reflecting your features, and the rest of the other human features that would be mitigated and that is that are avoided. So what is that next part which is with there? So as I said that nowadays the text editing which we are writing. So in our institute or the department, the summarization of the text input, the predicted type of that output to what is being expected, conversion of the multilingual type of that language, conversion of the image to the another image, classification of the image with that multiple number of the features which has been provided, uh, use of the person image from the period of the time, let us say for the 5-10 years images, that how that is that person is growing from the child to the adulthood. The various intervals are there. So in that case, how much features that are changed, which are those features which are not yet changed. Based on that, the missing person identifications can be easily classified. Likewise, in the generative AI, we can get that what would be the expected type of that output the person would be liking based on that area region and their choice. It gives that type of the output. So as I said that the similar type of that vocabulary pertaining to that the liking of the people on that very region from where that query is generated, the system generate to those type of the output. So these are the new things which are nowadays commonly being used, and which that is why this generative AI type of the techniques are normally being accepted by the large number of the people. So the main important thing is that once we require to train the system using this large data corpus available, where that large number of the features that are required to be used in order to take a decision. As I said that this is again the fast and learning technique. So instead of applying this brute force techniques like which the DeepSeek has done that, it has skipped those parts and accepted the information based on that area region and type of the decision that is to be taken. So in that case, the categorization for the clustering of that will based on that continent area region likewise and the acceptability of the people who like those type of the feature expecting that it should be given by the system. It gives those uh, alluring type of that additional statement which are more likely to do and accepted by the people. So as we know that the 7 billion number of the parameters now that this ChatGPT is using, and that requires the large data corpus to make that decision. So if we have to use this entire features that is to be taken into the account to make that computation and give us the output, in that case the cost of that will need to be paid. So small variations of making this hello, hi dear, good morning, good evening, pertaining to that the output which is to be created or generated, the system has to perform a lot of computation based on that area and region. So if somebody from the south side, in the north side says the word comes, which is the north to the south side, in that case, the reason why this word verbatim is not being used commonly. So in that case, it has to do a further computations and that would consume a lot of energy. So again, this is a very big concern while using the deep learning part that we require to have the large data corpus, large computing resources, and that need to perform the more computation, and that would require a large a high or huge energy consumption. So in order to reduce and let me tell you that in the data center which are using this clusters of the computing system, the amount of the energy required to compute or used by the system, the amount of the energy is required to cool those systems. So in this case, the amount of that energy consumption that becomes the double one. So nowadays, all those the data centers that are being put in the cool spring of the where that glacier you कहते हैं ना जलधारा ग्लेशियर की जलधारा धारा और नॉर्थ की जलधारा वो that is going in the sea, and this data centers are put in that to cool those systems. And in that case, the machine would perform well because it is not being heated up. So variations of this different type of the large language models that are available, and we have gone through this clearly in this part in our institute that the keyword abstractions, the writing of the statement, or the summarization of the text. Based on that, the decision has to be taken. This type of the work we have already done nowadays that has been added together and been used by the organizations who are providing this free type of services or paid services to the people. So this is not a related to that recent work. This type of the work in our department we are working for the past 15 years to make such type of that output. So another important part is that while making this generative AI, having those large data corpus available and the new input in what fashions you are providing, the variations of that can be there, and the expected type of the output in which type of the output you require. So four clear distinctions are there that we require to have the text, image, audio, and video type of the output. So in that case, if the text is there and the conversion of this is there, the image which is required to be explain that what is there in the image, what it is showing, the text type of the output or the audio type of the output would generate. So this is a mixing of those type of that input and out input multiple types source of that input, and that would produce the multiple variations of the output. And this is now a generalized phenomena which is currently being used. Recently, this the video generation or the image generation based on those type of the input which has been provided or the query which has been generated, the output are being generated by the generative AI, which are more acceptable one. So, if you want to work on this generative AI or which in which that the type of the data which wants to use, whether that could be audio, video, text, or any other type of the images, and clearly the classification of that or the marking of that is there. So in that case, it would become an easy one that having those that text input, the decision has to be made on based on that the output would be generated as per the requirement of the user. So likewise, the gap area is there that more perfection is required in order to make the larger acceptability of the output which are being generated. So, as I said that the variations of this our input and output are there, and and that would give us the better depiction of the output which is more acceptable. मेरे को चाहिए कि ये डेटा है इस कैटेगरी में मेरे को क्वेश्चन मेरे हिसाब से पूछना है. System should learn what I'm asking, and it should give explore take those type of the data corpus which is available with it, and give me that solution or the output which is acceptable to me, and I should be happy while seeing this. So this is what that the latest AI techniques they are doing. So as I said that text to text variations of that are there. So the clear distinction that what type of the function that can be done in the text to text where we have this classification, summarization, translation, uh, extracting those keywords, and based on that the decision has to be taken or correction may not meet the uh, correct correct information which is required. So sometimes we Hindi mixed with the English. Sometimes we use some sort of the common tag word which are used in the words which are of the platform, and in that case, that conversion of that or the correction of that need to be made, and the system should be able to do that. Pertaining to that, a very good research work has been done in our institute. Text to image is another part of where that clearly for those other categorization and emphasis on that particular image, the features part, and that can be given, and the system should be able to provide us those information. So likewise, this 3D animations and image visualization, particularly in the case of this healthcare, that plays a very important role to make that uh, uh, the expert to take the decision that what type of that image output is and whether in which type of the category that belongs. Specifically in the area of the melanoma, carcinoma, or that cells classification, or that bacteria information, whether that is there or not. So in that case, if those type of that information, if it is been there, in that case, the system should extract those information and emphasize that and give that output. It should not be like that, which I view this that the chances of making a biasing can be there, and based on that, the decision would be catastrophic. And in the medical healthcare system, it is a very critical one. So again, that what type of the task we expect the system should do. So yesterday I went to some a company evaluation pertaining to that the project was to be they need to work on. They were given the task that give us that visualize output here. We have to apply this number of the input and it should generate a user from the mobile system and the application you have to create which would have the set of the input and it has to give that sentence generalized sentence of explaining that these are the inputs which we require and based on that it has to give us that suggestive output which has to be agreed upon by the user. So both this mobile device and the application the system, the variation or the distinction of that platform should be there, and those input which is been provided based on that the clear distinction and the text summarization and the information input और क्लियरली बता देता हूँ कि भाई वो उसमें पुलिस डिपार्टमेंट में कि एफआईआर के अंदर क्या क्या उसमें एफआईआर कौन सी लागू होगी और कैसे वो वर्क करेगा दैट कैन बी इजीली input on that system. So it should be very much easy to the person who wants to file the FIR and those type of the input may be in his own language. The person may not be knowing the platform. So in that case, the text to speech to text conversion should be there in the localized language, and that should be converted in English language. And based on that, the decision has to be taken by the system. So the work is currently going on in this very area. So the part of that is currently going on in order to improve the performance of the system. So as I said that there are the variations of that input data and the multiple number of the tasks that can be performed by the system. So the and in a normalized way, we can say that all these different type of that variations and classification of the data and that can be used in a mixed way to give that different type of the output as per the need and requirement. So with this, you can say that we now take an example of this healthcare system. As I said that I may be having in images like images over here. Okay, so these images which are a medical images like the image of this is so variations of this are there. So some of them is benign, some of them are malignant. So in that case, all those information or that the data corpus which are provided using the fine needle aspiration techniques or some other type of that clear extraction of that from the human body and those type of the image are to be taken. So the uh, image size and its features may not be as per the expectation or the requirement. So if the camera who is capturing that image, that should be image. And currently that is a challenging one because the information from this micro uh, scope that is to be extracted that are not having those type of that high resolution images. So in that case, the low resolution images, if that are there, with where we can require to identify those regions. So extraction of the regions, the category, and the removing of that unwanted part, the Kalman filters are there, and some other type of that really functions are there, and also methods is there. The convolution part of that can also be there where we can boil John Boyla technique is there, which uses this clear boundary distinction of that image. We have been asked to identify which area is a that need to be considered. The region of interest that is to be considered, and the rest of the part we need not require. So in that case, clear distinctions among the malignant और the benign कौन सी सही है कौन सी नहीं है वो हमें पता लगाना बहुत जरूरी होता है. Based on that the decision has to be taken. So there are the various type of that machine learning in this artificial neural network, the VGG19 and the CNN convolution neural network that are there. So in order to use this medical imaging of the data, and again in this the better performance among them are there with the data input we have, and based on the big में अगर millions of images हैं और वो एक एरिया स्पेसिफिक से रिलेटेड हैं कि भाई वो ये आरसीसी पर है, रेनल सेल कार्सिनोमा है या फिर पिनल सेल कार्सिनोमा है या सॉफ्ट टिश्यू कार्सिनोमा है या कोई दूसरा बॉन कार्सिनोमा, every part of the body we have those type of that carcinogenic disease. So in that case, we is discussing over here is that the cervical cancer, which is a common type of that carcinogenic disease in the women. So in this case, we require to have the large data corpus and apply with this different type of the machine learning techniques. Nowadays, what is happening that having this training and the testing data 80% for the training and 20% of the testing. So in that case, if this 80% is let us say 1 million images, so 80 million um, 100 million images, so 80 million should be those type of the images which are being used for the testing, training, and the 20 remaining will be used for the testing of the data. So higher the accuracy of this testing data is expected. So in that case, the correlation matrix we require to make and the confusion matrix which would give us this clear distinction so that how much of that character output that the machine has been given. So in that case, the regression techniques, as I mentioned, 4 different type of the regression techniques are there, and we require to mitigate the error. So in that case, the root mean square techniques are being used, and the R square is used in order to improvise that accuracy. So higher the value of this R square that would be there. In that case, the more acceptance would be for that particular decision making of the machine. So the accuracy implies that the system is more accurate and giving the output. So the precision and recall implies that it is not giving us the correct output. So as you can see over here that when we apply this carcinogenic cervical cancer images data corpus which was available at well, yeah, this model is also performing well compared to this ANN and the VG model. So accuracy need to be very high, precision needs to be very high, and based on that, the recall should be less, and the score of this overall score of this with this precision and recall. If that is in that case, we can say that this model or this data corpus built on this model, better off, and that would be more acceptable. Now the expectation is that this 88% should be reach to the 99% or the 9 that would be the best classification and give us the output which is more acceptable. Okay, so I stop over here. If somebody who is having some question, please ask. Over to you, Agam.
If anybody has any doubt, they can ask in chat box. I hope I am audible right now.
Yes, Agam, your voice is clear. We are getting a voice.
So I think there are no queries. So we
Give
will.
them time because this is a new thing. I spoke about the generative AI. I spoke about the different type of the decision making criteria, and I spoke about the different type of that generative AI techniques that can be applied. So, pertaining to that, a lot of queries that may be there in the mind. So, give them time to put those type of the queries in that chat box, and I would be happy to give those answers. Okay. Hello.
Yes, yes, sir. We can hear.
Can I leave?
Sir, just anyone, if anyone is having queries, they can put up in chat box or we can proceed. So, so on behalf of Sir FDP organizing committee, so on behalf of I'd like to extend a huge thank you for taking time to share your valuable insights. Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
So the next session will start from 11:10. We will be meeting here.